Innovating Education Learning World in association with WISE, an initiative of Qatar Foundation.
In a globalized world, young people often need international education in order to compete. But retaining their own cultural identity is also important. We look at ways of doing this now on Learning World. Learning new languages is a way of exploring other cultures, but the mother tongue is a vital element of cultural identity. So how does this work in multicultural societies? In this report, we go to Germany to see how they are managing.
Teacher Sofia Ferreira starts a new working day at Neues Tor Elementary School in central Berlin. This institution isn't like other schools. More than 20 different nationalities are to be found here. From first grade on, classes here are bilingual, in both Portuguese and German.
It's super interesting here. Of course, we are all different, with different values and manners. It's a learning process for humans, and sometimes this leads to difficulties.
The school is part of the European school system, where kids choose their bilingual education from 9 different languages. Classes are made up of native speakers of both languages, and teachers come from Portugal, Cabo Verde, Angola and Brazil.
We want them to be the change. Our children know that they can't throw rubbish in the street. If they see an empty plastic bottle, they pick it up and bring it here because it's for recycling. They sweep the front of their houses, so despite their relative youth, they represent the change in the community.
The multinational classrooms at Neues Tor are about intercultural exchange from a very early age on. Tolerance and mutual respect are key, as the school's principal explains.
It would not be normal if there were no conflicts at our school resulting from cultural differences. However, we see these conflicts as a challenge for our teaching strategy. And we see this as something fruitful and not as a burden.
The more grown-up kids already communicate fluently in both languages. Being bilingual for some of them even has practical value in their family lives.
My mother's from Brazil and doesn't really speak German, and my stepfather does speak German, so I always have to translate. So I have to learn German, right?
My mother is from Portugal and my father is from Ireland, so we speak Portuguese and English in my family.
Bilingual education in a multinational surrounding is seen here as an investment in the future.
Language is one basic tool we use to decipher global issues, but context, seeing the wider picture, is also important. In Denmark, a newly launched university course on education aims to produce graduates who can compete beyond their borders.
30 students from all over the world have been selected to participate in the MA of Anthropology of Education and Globalization this year. The 2-year program run by the Aarhus University in Denmark is for the first time focusing on the anthropology of education as a subfield within anthropology. Candidates will not just learn a global perspective on education, but also study concepts like the so-called global knowledge economy.
Increasingly, politicians and researchers argue that we live in a global knowledge economy, and they talk about globalization as an issue which makes it necessary to do particular things, especially to reform our education systems. So worldwide, you see a lot of tendency or trends to reform higher education systems, primary schools, secondary schools, in a particular way so that a nation state will see or find itself more competitive in this new global knowledge economy.
I think with the globalization and the global world, everything moves so fast. So I think it's extremely difficult to to be up to date myself all the time. Sometimes the students are more up to date than I am. So I think it's definitely a challenge to be a teacher in this globalized world. But I think it's very interesting.
Candidates specialise in several areas and are expected to do anywhere between 3 and 5 months' experience abroad.
They have the opportunity to go abroad and do a field study for 3 to 5 months, where they choose a topic of their own choice. So some students might want to go to Kenya to see how the kids in the primary schools are dealing with the pressing issues of poverty or expectations from their parents or whatever.
After studying, students are qualified to work in international organisations.
So that's the theory. Now let's look at how it works on the ground. This next report comes from Guatemala, where we look at a project connecting students in remote villages to the outside world. We explore how it maintains the delicate balance between local and global practices.
Santa Maria de Jesus is a remote village in the highlands of Guatemala with less than 15,000 people. Aside from the bi-weekly market, it looks like the land that time forgot. Education has also been largely forgotten by most of its isolated youth. But this new school, called Weaving Minds, Weaving Knowledge, aims to change that by giving students the tools to succeed in a more interconnected world.
At ChemNO, we give them the opportunity to see a bigger part of the world and a more global picture. So we hope they can learn what's happening in other parts of the world and be aware. And hopefully they'll be interested and want to continue their education and learn more and be part of that big picture.
The school was set up by donations from the US-based From Houses to Homes charity. Even the building was designed by a group of architecture students from New York's Syracuse University. Young volunteers from abroad visit the school often, which puts the students at ChemNO at an advantage in their country and region.
It's incredible to me just how much exposure they've had just from being in this little school in the middle of nowhere in Guatemala, that they can have so much contact and know so much about all around the world.
New technology certainly helps. PCs are rare in this village, but at school, pupils can log onto the internet and connect to the whole world. At the click of a mouse, they get in touch with big global issues like global warming, sustainable development, or recycling.
We want them to be the change. Our children know that they can't throw rubbish in the street. If they see an empty plastic bottle, they pick it up and bring it here because it's for recycling. They sweep the front of their houses. So despite their relative youth, they represent the change in the community.
The school programs respect the motto, which says only if you know your own culture can you embrace another's. For the principal, investing in culture is the key to change.
We've seen it as a way to help the development of this community. If they look at it like that, then we feel encouraged. We want to create a new atmosphere for the kids, to change their lives. And not only for them, but also for their families, their community. We want them to be role models for others.
And until now, the results have been quite impressive.
Finally, do you have any globalized educational experience? How was it? Was it tough to preserve your local identity? Share your thoughts with us via our social media pages. Goodbye for now.
Learning World in association with WISE, an initiative of Qatar Foundation.